In the early 1970s, the United States Navy faced a key challenge. Many of its destroyers, dating back to the Second World War, were rapidly aging. The Allen M. Sumner and Gearing-class destroyers, once the backbone of U.S. naval power, were reaching the limits of their operational lifespans. A new generation of destroyers was required. Ships capable of addressing modern submarine threats, while also embracing guided missile armament. Out of this need arose the Spruance-class destroyer, a vessel designed to balance between the need for innovation and practicality. It is ultimately named after Admiral Raymond Spruance, the World War II commander of U.S. forces at the Battle of Midway and the Battle of the Philippine Sea. The Spruance class, introduced in 1975, represented a bold departure from previous U.S. destroyer designs. At first glance, the ships were unassuming, especially when compared to Soviet surface combatants of the era. Where their Cold War counterparts bristled with anti-ship missiles and large imposing weapons, the Spruances featured a clean deck layout, 2 5-inch guns, 1 forward and 1 aft, and missile systems primarily geared towards anti-submarine and points defense roles. This initial impression generated skepticism, including among members of Congress, who questioned whether the class could really match the firepower of their Soviet opponent. Yet, beneath their humble appearance, these destroyers incorporated a series of revolutionary features that would shape the future of U.S. surface combatants. At its core, the Spruance-class destroyer was designed primarily for anti-submarine warfare, a mission that defined much of its naval architecture. During the Cold War, the United States Navy faced a growing threat from Soviet's nuclear-powered and diesel-electric submarines, which could threaten carrier groups and critical sea lanes. The Spruance's large hull allowed for advanced sonar systems, including the bow-mounted SQS-53 and the SQR-19 passive towed array sonar, giving it excellent detection capabilities at the time. Its relatively quiet gas turbine propulsion reduced acoustic signatures compared to the steam turbines previously used on U.S. destroyers, making it harder for enemy submarines to detect the ship. Additionally, the Spruance deployed 2 medium helicopters equipped with sonar, sonobuoys, and torpedoes, greatly extending its ASW reach beyond the range of its shipboard sensors. This combination of onboard and airborne assets made the Spruance-class destroyers highly effective at tracking, hunting, and neutralizing undersea threats, ensuring the protection of high-value units such as aircraft carriers and amphibious forces. The hull form of the Spruance-class destroyer was a significant departure from previous U.S. destroyer designs, reflecting a careful balance between speed, stability, and operational flexibility. At 172 meters in overall length, with a beam of 17 meters and a displacement of 8,200 tons full load, the ships were comparable in size to contemporary guided missile cruisers. This larger hull allowed for a spacious internal layout, supporting not only improved propulsion systems and weaponry, but also aviation facilities for 2 helicopters, a feature that was unprecedented for a U.S. destroyer at the time. The hull's fine lines and flared bow contributed to very good seakeeping characteristics, allowing the vessel to maintain speed and stability in rough seas, which was crucial for anti-submarine operations where sonar effectiveness and helicopter operations depended on a smooth, stable platform. Stability is quite important for the clarity of sonar signals and the orientation of the sonar transducer. to say nothing of things like flow noise and cavitation. A larger ship that is appropriately designed is naturally more stable compared to the smaller and less seaworthy destroyers of the past. The internal layout and modular construction of the Spruance-class ships were deliberately designed to facilitate upgrades and modernization over time. Major subsystems, including the combat systems, propulsion machinery, and sensor suites, were installed in modular units, making it possible to replace or modernize entire sections of the ship without extensive reconstruction. This forward-thinking approach simplified the integration of new weapons, such as the Tomahawk missile launchers and vertical launch systems that were retrofitted onto many ships. The abundance of free space and large size of the vessels were a deliberate design philosophy aimed at balancing between current operational effectiveness and future adaptations and modernization potential. Naval architects also place significant emphasis on survivability and redundancy in the ship's design. Critical systems, including the gas turbine propulsion, chilled water circuits, and damage control systems, were distributed across the hull to reduce vulnerability to single-point failures or battle damage. The stable hull form and compact design of the ship ensure that the Spruance-class destroyer could operate effectively in a wide range of environments, from open ocean carrier escort missions to littoral operations. One of the most notable innovations was their propulsion system. The Spruance-class destroyers were the first large U.S. Navy ships to utilize gas turbine propulsion. 4 General Electric LM-2500 gas turbines, arranged in a combined gas and gas or COGAG configuration, delivered roughly 80,000 horsepower across 2 shafts. This system offered numerous advantages over traditional steam turbines, including reduced startup time, lower maintenance requirements, and the aforementioned quieter acoustic signature, an important factor in anti-submarine warfare. The success of this arrangement would influence virtually every subsequent U.S. surface combatant, from guided missile cruisers to modern destroyers. The incorporation at the outset of both a flight deck and enclosed hangar capable of supporting 2 medium helicopters was especially important. This aviation capability, integral to anti-submarine warfare, allowed Spruance-class vessels to project their sensors and weapons far beyond the horizon, extending the Navy's undersea detection and engagement envelope. In combination with the AN/SQS-53 bow-mounted sonar and the AN/SQR-19 towed array system, the 2 helicopters make these ships highly capable anti-submarine platforms. The deck layout provided clear fields of fire for both 5-inch guns and missile systems while minimizing interference between different combat systems and radar systems. The Spruance-class destroyers feature 2 primary radar masts, each serving distinct functions that enhance the ship's situational awareness and combat functions. The forward mast carries the AN/SPS-40 air search radar, which provides long-range detection of high-altitude aircraft, and the AN/SPG-60 fire control radar, used to guide missiles and gunfire against aerial threats. The aft mast is primarily focused on surface search and tracking, including the AN/SPS-55 surface search radar and the Mark 23 target acquisition system, which can track both surface ships and low-flying threats. By separating these systems across 2 masts, The Spruance class achieves operational redundancy, reduces interference between the different sensors, and allows the ship to simultaneously monitor air and surface contact. Despite these innovations, the initial armament of the Spruance class was modest. If one major flaw can be identified in the Spruance class design, it is that the ships were lightly armed for missions beyond anti-submarine warfare. Each vessel carried two 5-inch Mark 45 guns, an 8-cell ASROC launcher for anti-submarine rockets, an 8-cell Sea Sparrow points defense missile system, and two triple torpedo tubes. For self-defense against missiles and anti-submarine warfare, this weapon configuration was pretty good. However, in an era increasingly dominated by long-range anti-ship missiles, the Spruance was arguably underarmed. The limited weaponry left the Spruance underpowered in surface combat scenarios and ill-prepared for fleet air defense missions. When contrasted with contemporary Soviet destroyers, the Spruance's limitations become more apparent. Soviet designs of the 1970s and 1980s, such as the Sovereigny class or the WWII class, were heavily armed for anti-ship engagement, often carrying multiple large-caliber anti-ship missile batteries capable of striking at ranges measured in hundreds of kilometers. These Russian ships also featured layered area air defense systems, including medium-range surface-to-air missiles capable of protecting not just themselves but the overall task force as a whole. In comparison, the Spruance's Sea Sparrows provided only points defense against incoming missiles, and even with the addition of Harpoon missiles, did little to match the Soviets' emphasis on anti-ship capabilities. This contrast underscores the Spruance's role as a specialized ASW platform rather than a true multi-purpose surface combatant. By the late 20th century, a clear trend in destroyer design was the shift towards multi-purpose platforms capable of performing anti-submarine, anti-ship, and especially and most importantly, fleet air defense missions. The US Navy's own Arleigh Burke class destroyers symbolized this evolution, integrating the AEGIS combat system to provide fleet-wide air defense while retaining robust strike capabilities. In this context, the Spruance class, despite its advanced sonar systems and helicopter facilities, was really ill-equipped to fit the emerging multi-purpose paradigm. Its relatively light armament and lack of area air defense meant it could not serve as a fleet-wide air defense shield, and its offensive missile capabilities were limited compared to Soviet destroyers. While the Spruance excelled in its intended anti-submarine warfare role, it ultimately highlights a transitional stage in naval architecture, an intermediate design optimized for one primary mission, rather than the true multi-purpose flexibility that became standard in subsequent destroyer classes. Arguably, the Spruance class's greatest weakness lies in its relatively light armament and narrow specialization. While highly effective in tracking and neutralizing submarines, the ships were unsuitable in engaging surface warships or defending against missiles. This means the operational flexibility of the class is constrained, making them less suited for high-intensity surface warfare or multi-threat environments compared to contemporaries designed with broader mission profiles. That, in my view, was a mistake. That being said, over time, the Navy's upgrades would substantially enhance their strike capabilities and cover some of the aforementioned weakness. The Spruance class was later adapted to install Tomahawk cruise missiles. 7 ships initially received a pair of armored box launchers carrying 8 Tomahawks in total, enabling them to engage land targets with precision. Subsequently, a major mid-1980s modernization program equipped 24 vessels with the 61-cell Mark 41 vertical launch system, vastly increasing missile capacity and versatility. These upgrades did not alter the class's DD designation, which traditionally applied to gun destroyers, but they allowed the ships to undertake a far wider range of missions, including land attack operations and surface warfare to a limited extent. The Spruances proved their value in the First Persian Gulf War. During Operation Desert Storm, Spruance-class destroyers launched 112 Tomahawk missiles, representing a significant proportion of the U.S. Navy's total strikes. In addition to missile operations, these ships demonstrated remarkable flexibility. Several Spruances embarked U.S. Army light attack helicopters to support the recapture of Kuwaiti Islands, coordinated by the shipborne SH-60 Seahawk helicopters using surface search radar. They also served as mine countermeasure motherships, supplying fuel, food, and water to smaller mine countermeasure vessels, enabling prolonged mine-sweeping operations in the Persian Gulf. The Gulf War underscored the upgrade potential of the Spruance, which enabled their versatility in terms of supporting war on land. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, analysts recognized both the strengths and challenges associated with the Spruance class. In 1997, for example, a detailed review highlighted the need for modernization to address an emerging littoral threat, particularly as the Navy's strategic focus shifted from blue water towards power projection inland. The analysis noted that while the Spruances were still highly effective in undersea warfare missions, operating closer to land required enhancements in survivability, sensor capability, and firepower. Recommendations included upgrading to all-electric propulsion, improving fuel efficiency, modernizing the damage control and firefighting systems, and installing advanced missile defenses such as the rolling airframe missile launcher. Additionally, improvements to the 5-inch guns, including the potential integration of extended-range guided munition rounds, would enable the ships to provide effective naval gunfire support to troops operating ashore. The rolling airframe missiles were later tested, but the idea was eventually abandoned. The development of the extended-range guided munition rounds got nowhere, and was cancelled in 2008 after spending over $600 million in funding. The modernization plan also emphasized improved combat systems and sensor integration, replacing 2-dimensional air search radars with 3-dimensional systems would enhance early warning against low-flying aircraft and cruise missiles, particularly in the littorals. Despite the Spruance class's potential for modernization, actual upgrades proved technically difficult and financially expensive. Difficulties modernizing the ships, maintenance cost, and budget constraints shaped the ultimate fate of the Spruance class. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, the Navy faced significant pressure to streamline operations, reduce manpower requirements, and field more capable multi-mission ships. The Arleigh Burke class destroyer, with its AEGIS combat system, area air defense capabilities, and integrated sensor suite, provided a far more versatile platform that could meet a broader range of threats at a lower life cycle cost. As a result, the Spruance-class destroyers were gradually retired, with the last vessel, the USS Cushing, decommissioned in 2005. most ships were dismantled or used as live-fire targets. The Spruance hull, however, left a lasting legacy. Despite its light armament and narrow focus on anti-submarine warfare, the Spruance-class destroyer left a strong influence on the design for future U.S. Navy surface combatants. The hull form and propulsion arrangements of the Spruance proved so effective that they were later adopted as the foundation for the Ticonderoga-class cruisers. These cruisers expanded upon the Spruance designs with enhanced AEGIS combat systems, greater armaments, and flagship facilities, ultimately becoming one of the most successful and long-serving classes of surface combatants in the U.S. Navy. The Spruance's large, stable hull and modular internal layouts demonstrated the advantages of designing a platform that could accommodate major upgrades over time. This modernization potential was seen as important for future surface combatants, which explains why the Spruance hull was adapted. Elements of the Spruance-class design were also incorporated into the Arleigh Burke class destroyers, cementing its influence on future U.S. surface combatants. The flight deck and enclosed hangar capable of operating 2 medium-lift helicopters, a feature first introduced on the Spruance, became standard on later Arleigh Burke variants, enhancing their anti-submarine and surveillance capabilities. The use of gas turbine propulsion with the LM 2500 engines and COGAG configuration, proven reliable and efficient on the Spruance, was also carried forward, providing a combination of speed, redundancy, and fuel efficiency. Additionally, lessons learned from the Spruance's modular combat systems, sensor layouts, and survivability features informed the engineering and design of subsequent destroyers, ensuring that the innovations in the Spruance shaped the U.S. Navy surface combatants for decades to come. Ultimately, the Spruance-class destroyers were a study in pragmatic innovation. They were not the flashiest or most heavily armed vessels of their time, but they embodied a forward-looking approach to ship design, focusing on modularity and modernization potential. We see a vessel that was both a product of its time and a harbinger of future naval warfare concepts. It served as a bridge between the Cold War destroyers of World War II heritage and the multi-mission, Aegis-equipped ships of the 21st century. The Spruance left a lasting mark that can be found all over U.S. Navy surface combatants of the modern day.